a legal tongue lashing, a political setback, and an administrative embarrassment. A judge basically told the president that you can't do your retribution campaign, at least not this way. You can't. That judge ruled that the president's handpicked federal prosecutor can't lawfully do the job she was told to do and can't bring two of the cases she was handpicked to bring. She, of course, is Lindsay Halligan, who until recently had zero experience as a criminal prosecutor, but plenty as the president's personal attorney and loyal defender. The cases are the ones she brought in the Eastern District of Virginia against former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James. He on charges he lied to Congress, she on mortgage-related fraud counts. In both cases, Judge Cameron McGowan Curry ruled that Lindsay Halligan was installed as interim U.S. attorney unlawfully. In the Comey case, she writes, "In light of these principles, I conclude that all actions flowing from Ms. Halligan's defective appointment, including securing and signing Mr. Comey's indictment, constitute unlawful exercise of his executive power and must be set aside." She dismissed both cases without prejudice, meaning they may be brought again, providing the legal errors can be fixed. The president did not weigh in directly today, but as if to underscore how unprecedented this is, it was not the Attorney General Pam Bondi who holds the reins in this. She did not go on camera until 2 hours after the White House press secretary did.
We've seen partisan judges take unprecedented steps to try to intervene in accountability before, but we're not going to give up. And I know that the Department of Justice intends to appeal these rulings very soon if they haven't already.
Now, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt followed a couple hours later, and make of that what you will, by the Attorney General of the United States.
I'm going to keep going on this. I'm not worried about someone who has been charged with a very serious crime. His alleged actions were a betrayal of public trust.
Now, New York Attorney General James put out a statement today saying she was heartened by the victory and promising to remain fearless, as she put it, in the face of these baseless charges. As for James Comey, he weighed in on camera.
This case mattered to me personally, obviously, but it matters most because a message has to be sent that the President of the United States cannot use the Department of Justice to target his political enemies. I don't care what your politics are, you have to see that as fundamentally un-American and a threat to the rule of law that keeps all of us free. I know that Donald Trump will probably come after me again, and my attitude is going to be the same. I'm innocent, I am not afraid, and I believe in an independent federal judiciary, the gift from our founders that protects us from a would-be tyrant.
Again, the president did not comment directly today, but his views by now are well known. He made them all but explicit a little more than 2 months ago in this posting online, which may have been intended as a direct message to the Attorney General. Quoting now, "What about Comey, Adam, Shifty Schiff, Letitia? They're all guilty as hell, but nothing is going to be done." The post ends with, "Justice must be served now." Now, 5 days later, Comey was indicted. 2 weeks later, so was James. But it's not like it wasn't a long time coming if the president's words are any guide.
Comey and all this, sleazebags.
Comey lied to everybody.
Brennan.
We fired Comey, that fraud.
That phony, crooked Comey.
Comey should hang his head in disgrace. Comey is a dirty cop. Comey is a corrupt person. One of the best things is firing James Comey's out of there. He's a leaker. Comey, who's the worst. They lied to Congress many times. Comey and all those guys. Comey lies and leaks. He's a liar and he's a leaker. Is this guy being looked at? But we're going to straighten it out.
The president on James Comey over the years, and here's some of his thoughts about Letitia James.
By the racist Attorney General of New York State, Letitia Peekaboo James. We have a racist Attorney General who's a horror show. She's got serious Trump derangement syndrome. James ought to be looked at. All they do is want to go after political opponents.
Interesting he put it that way. And with us here, CNN chief White House correspondent and anchor of The Source, Caitlin Collins. As we just heard there, the president hasn't been shy about expressing his feelings over James Comey and Letitia James in these cases over the years. So is it clear how he's viewing this tonight?
I mean, obviously, the White House saw this coming. The president himself, though, is unhappy with this. I mean, obviously, they're blaming judges here. That's what Caroline Leavitt was saying. You know, we're not that surprised by how this has played out. And it was clear that there were going to be huge challenges to Lindsay Halligan's appointment as the U.S. attorney. This actually doesn't have anything to do with her qualifications. It's the fact that she's the second person put in this position on an interim basis. That is what the issue that the judge had here. But as for the White House and the DOJ and what they're going to do next here, I do think it was notable that the press secretary responded before the attorney general had on this matter of what the next step was. Pam Bondi did say they are going to appeal it, but the real question is whether or not they are going to refile these charges against James Comey and Letitia James. And I've been talking to people about that this evening. It's not clear that they have a plan yet of what that's going to look like. But if you remember, John, when they first indicted Tish James here in this case, it completely caught the Justice Department off guard. They did not know that was coming that day. They knew it was in the works, but the day that Lindsay Halligan actually went to the grand jury to pursue that, caught the White House and caught senior leadership at the Justice Department off guard by that. And so it kind of shows you how there's not really just a clear plan here of how to proceed. There's a lot of factions inside the Justice Department right now that are competing for the White House's attention. And so it's not really clear actually what the next step here is going to look like.
You know, I too thought it was notable that Caroline Leavitt spoke before the Attorney General of the United States. I was trying to say that before. I wasn't as eloquent as you. Any sense of a timeline here? Do they feel like they have to make a decision quickly?
I think the president will probably want to see action here. But I think, you know, there is a scenario here, and I was talking to Trump sources about this a few weeks ago when this played out, that they did believe that a judge would intervene and either say Lindsay Halligan was put in that position and it wasn't legal, it wasn't justified, and that would actually be a way out for Lindsay Halligan to not actually have to prosecute these cases and go the full extent, because a lot of people at the DOJ don't actually think the case against at least Tish James has merit. And so they were saying actually it could be a way to still please the president, because you can still blame it on a judge and say the judge stood in the way, but it actually accomplished what he wanted, which was to target his foes. So we'll see how they decide to proceed here.
It's a lot of legal activity just to satisfy the president. Caitlin Collins, thank you very much for that. We'll see you at the top of the hour for The Source. Attorney General Pam Bondi also weighed in on interim U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan's future after the judge said her appointment was unlawful. Listen again.
We have made Lindsay Halligan a special U.S. attorney, so she is in court. She can fight in court just like she was, and we believe we will be successful on appeal. And I'll tell you, Lindsay Halligan, I talked to all of our U.S. attorneys, the majority of them around the country, and Lindsay Halligan is an excellent U.S. attorney, and shame on them for not wanting her in office.
All right, with us now, former federal prosecutor and CNN senior legal analyst Elie Honig and former chief judge for the U.S. Middle District Court of Pennsylvania, John Jones. Counsel, let me just start with you here. How embarrassing is this when a judge rules that the person who was appointed by the Justice Department isn't there legally?
Let's put it this way. DOJ has now lost both of its two highest profile cases with one fell swoop, and they lost it because of incompetence, because they didn't install Lindsay Halligan into office in the proper way. And by the way, and this goes to the clip we just saw of the Attorney General, they knew they screwed up. The Justice Department knew they screwed up. And here's how we know they know. Because after they installed Lindsay Halligan, they tried to issue a memo a couple weeks later saying, well, actually, we call her this thing called a special attorney to the Justice Department. And the judge today said, yeah, it doesn't work that way. You don't get to issue something 2 weeks later and say, this goes back to 2 weeks ago. So it's a screw up at the most fundamental level. And for now, these cases are dead.
Yeah, I mean, what even is a special U.S. attorney in this case? That's what Pam Bondi was referring to.
Yeah, it's a way to really try to end run this ruling, to try to say, well, maybe this person isn't the temporary U.S. attorney, the top federal prosecutor in the district, but they're just generally exercising the attorney general's power. So they're trying to fix it, but it's too late.
All right, Judge Jones, I want to bring you in here. The judge did toss out the case without prejudice, which leaves open the possibility that the cases against Comey and James can be brought again, alleging the same conduct. How hard would that be?
Well, I think, John, in the case of Letitia James, because there's what's called a savings clause that gives a 6-month window that the charges could be brought again. I'm not so sure in the case of Mr. Comey even though it's without prejudice, I think there's a very creative and possibly strong argument that the statute of limitations has run in that case. The judge used the phrase void ab initio as it related to Halligan's appointment, and that means in layman's terms basically dead on arrival. So I'm not sure the savings clause applies, and you can bet if these charges are brought again, that Comey's very excellent attorneys are going to argue that the statute has run and that the 6-month extension doesn't apply. So I think it's going to be very hard. Plus, they have to find somebody who's willing to get in there and bring these charges. That's difficult in and of itself.
And that was one of the problems the first time around.